How's everybody doing tonight? All right, I need to tell Scott that I've known and loved Admiral's Row for a long time, and my house, which everybody comes to and says, ooh and ah, it looked worse than that when I bought it. It was worse. You could stand on the rafters, on the roof, and look straight through into the basement. And my house is beautiful now, so do not give up. I had a few notes, and I put them over here, hidden inside of this piece of art are my notes, which I will now transfer to here because that's a lot easier. I don't necessarily need them, but I have a lot of things to talk about. So first of all, my title is Brewmaster. You might be cooler than me, but your title is not as good as mine. There are only 2 or 3 titles in the United States better than Brewmaster. One of them is astronaut. The second one is quarterback. I was at a party once, and I did this, like, what do you do? What do you do? Brewmaster. It's like, what do you do? Fighter pilot. I was like, ooh. Doesn't happen all that often. Doesn't happen very often. So we're talking about what's next. And in order to look at what's next, I think we have to look at a little bit back to our past, because a lot of people here in this borough don't understand where Brooklyn comes from. So, and then a little bit about what's going on in the country when it comes to beer, when it comes to everything. I want to take you back to New York City, 1890 or thereabouts, anywhere in a couple of decades before or after. In Brooklyn, we had 48 breweries. Those 48 breweries made 10% of all the beer in the United States. This was one of the great brewing capitals of the entire world. And when it comes to food, and when it comes to drink, we had the most diverse food culture in the entire world, and we had the most diverse beer culture in the entire world. I love Germany and Belgium for their beers. I loved English beers. We had everything. In a few weeks, I will be on vacation. I will be on the Italian coast. On the Italian coast, down by the coast, in Liguria, you go to the few restaurants that are down there, and they have spectacular food. It's ridiculous. All the fish are still either moving in the morning or they look surprised. I was just talking to Frank, and now I'm here. I don't know what happened. I don't even eat fish for like 2 months after I get back. The thing is that if you're eating Ligurian coastal food, there are about 20 dishes, and these 20 dishes are brilliant. They are great dishes. But if you travel back into the mountains a half an hour through a little tunnel, now you will eat Ligurian mountain food. Ligurian coastal food and Ligurian mountain food have no dishes in common. You will not get any fish a half an hour back into the mountains from the sea, because a couple hundred years ago, you couldn't get up there within a day. And my point is, we always had everything because we had everybody. We had your great-great-grandparents and your great-great-grandparents and your great-great-grandparents, and they came from different places. We had Lithuanian neighborhoods in New York City. We had a Norwegian neighborhood down by where the Verrazano Bridge is now. We had huge Chinese neighborhoods. Your people are from the south of Italy and you're tired of companion food. Walk 15 minutes that way, and you will be in a different country with different food, speaking a different language. You could always travel inside of Brooklyn, which is something that you can't do in a great many other places. We had everything, but then there were problems. Food, in particular, for an American, was a problem. Things spoiled. Life is a problem. Life eats things, and when it eats things, it spoils things. Bread turns moldy. Cheese turns moldy. Meat goes off. What to do? Well, there's science. And science, around the turn of the century, they said, could solve everything. Now, we had Prohibition, which was actually more of an anti-German, anti-Catholic movement than it was an anti-alcohol movement. Don't have time to get into that right now. Well, you got to think about it. In the year 1920, the entire American brewing industry was pretty heavily German, to the extent that the meetings of the Master Brewers Association of the Americas were held in German. We had just finished with World War I. Not so popular. So it was really more about the people, but we're not going to get there now. But here's the thing. We went into that period with the greatest beer culture in the world. We had breweries that made nothing but IPA. We had breweries that specialized in Weiss beer. We had breweries that featured the new lagers from Europe. We imported everything else here. We drank so much Guinness that at one point they actually built a Guinness brewery on Long Island to feed beer to New York City. We were the beer capital of the world in a great many ways. And then Prohibition, and we came out the other side, and we were in a different world. We had roads that could bring things to people. That sounds good. But the problem is, once you can bring everything to everybody, and now you have radio, now you can sell a mass product. And we emerged in 1933 into a different world. And if you want to cue the clip, that world looked like this.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
People figured this out. When I went to the supermarket in the 1970s, when I was a kid, I was in the Matrix. I didn't know it. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what it was. And the thing that was wrong is that the things that said that they were food were not food. Who here has made a loaf of bread? Ever baked a loaf of bread? Okay, how long does a loaf of bread stay fresh? Regular loaf of white bread. A day, 2 days, okay. A loaf of bread does not stay fresh in a bag for 2 weeks. The thing in the bag at the supermarket wasn't bread. In fact, it didn't look like bread, it didn't smell like bread, it didn't taste like bread. It was not made how bread is made, and it was not made from what bread is made from. Bread is made from 4 or 5 ingredients, each of which can be pronounced by a 5-year-old child. The stuff that I grew up with had a big blue panel on the side of the bag that were mostly the names of chemicals. Why were we not terrified? Progress. A loaf of bread is a problem. A problem. It's got 2 heels on it. You got to try to, you got to get the kids out the door. You got to slice through this thing. You got to make the sandwich. And you got one day, now you're going to make panzanella or something out of the rest of it. Got to make some kind of bread salad, a shorta, something to use up the rest of this bread before it goes bad. Wonder Bread. Ooh. We solved everything. Fresh in a bag for 2 weeks. Sticks to the roof of your mouth when you eat it. Can be rolled into a marble and flicked across the room. The bread that I ate when I was a child, I wondered why they called it a crust when it wasn't crusty, but in fact, it was sprayed on food coloring. It had never actually seen an oven. It was baked, not steamed. Everything about it, fake. What is this? Some of you might say cheese. The package, and I didn't even know this was possible, said imitation pasteurized cheese food product. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know you could actually imitate that. That's amazing. Now, the supposedly good brand of this stuff once put out a television commercial said that our slices are 70% milk. Our competitors' slices are 30% milk. Cheese is 100% milk. You're scaring me. What is this? This, technically speaking, is an edible plastic. I kid you not, I can put it in my pocket and walk around with it for a month and then take it out and eat it. That's not cheese. By the way, do you know why it's yellow? Anybody know why it's yellow? Because in the old days, cheese, when it got older, it turned yellow naturally, and it got more flavor. As it got more flavor, it got more expensive. And then later, they start to put a food coloring into it to imitate what it looked like when it got good. That was before they turned it into plastic. And now we have removed the original reason for it being yellow. We all know that milk is white. And we have the product which is yellow and has an artificial flavor for something that we don't even know about anymore. That's the Matrix. And beer has had many, many subterfuges over the years. They used to, into porter, which was the great beer of its age, built all the great breweries of England, they used to put drugs. And when I say drugs, I mean drugs. I mean, they went before Parliament and actually said to people, look, if we were to use so much malt that this was actually strong enough to make people drunk, we would never make a profit, and therefore we need drugs in the beers. People were willing to do anything. A few years ago, Charlie Bamforth, Anheuser-Busch endowed chair of brewing technology at University of California, Davis, great man, one of the brightest people I've ever met, said that in the future, what we would have would be a factory with no people that would make beer. You would just have, you'd roll up with tankers, and you'd have streams coming in. You'd have ethanol, and you'd have your water supply, and you'd have a set of flavorings that would all be put together, carbonated, and it would be indistinguishable from many of the beers that are on the market today. Because what happened to beer was the same thing that happened to cheese, and happened to bread, and happened to chocolate. You know, when I was a kid, we thought that the good chocolate was the stuff that, that was made by the big American manufacturers, not that other stuff, which was obviously made of wax. But it didn't have all that much chocolate in it. I remember the first time that I tasted real maple syrup, and I was like, well, this is a little subtle, isn't it? First time I went into a cheese shop in Paris. What is that smell? It is the cheese, monsieur. No, that's not cheese. Fromage does not smell like that. We took the most diverse beverage in the world, something that can taste like chocolate or coffee or bananas or flowers, and we turned it into a little ghost in a can. The stuff that we poured earlier, some of you were at the little tasting that we had earlier, it might have tasted weird to you. These pictures you have behind you are of the barrel house that we have at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. We hold over 2,000 barrels at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, aging things in oak. And they say to me, you've gotten some great ideas from the wine people. It's like, that's nice, great ideas from the wine people. We've only been putting beer in oak barrels for 2,000 years, and now I have great ideas from the wine people. That's awesome. Do you know when people started using stainless steel kegs? 1950. You know, a lot of what looks like innovation is actually remembering things. And we remember things. Red Bull doesn't have a provenance. It's a great product. It makes money. But people expect things from us. They expect things to be real. And what's next is the real. We are bringing the real. That is what the beer is. When you taste things and you say, wow, that's really interesting, it doesn't taste like beer, you might think about, actually, it does taste like beer. You grew up in the Matrix, you know, and you thought that beer was a ghost in a can, and actually it's not. A couple of days ago, I was in Riga. A woman made a presentation on marketing, and she said that you don't need to make real stories. All you need to tell is a good story when you're doing marketing. And I was in a former Soviet republic. It was not lost on me. And I got angry because we've managed to make a great business out of actually believing that people have good taste and simply putting it in front of them. And you know what? I don't care whether you're an 80-year-old grandmother with a blue rinse, or you're a 22-year-old woman who just got out of college. If it tastes good, guess what? It tastes good, and we'll never talk down to you. Thanks.